everybody, welcome back. Dr. Granoff and I are continuing our very fun chats. And today we're actually looking at some qualitative things. My study was not qualitative, so it's always interesting to me to see the other side of the aisle, if we could call it that. So Dr. Granoff, I see you've got something on the screen here. Let's talk this through. Tell us what we're looking at.
Sure. Thanks, Rebecca. What I was hoping to do today is to give you some additional ideas on how to do your qualitative analysis that may add a little bit of spice, may add a little bit of the, where's the gap in the literature, things like that. This first tool is a feeling chart. My doctorate is in clinical psychology, so often with clients, you give them something like a feeling chart for them to be able to articulate where are they on the emotional Richter scale. And sometimes people can't put words into do that. So part of the healing process is for them to get a sense of where they are on that. So there's a lot of these on the internet. This is one from a therapist named Julian West. What they have is the feeling words for happy, sad, angry, and confused, sorted high, medium, mild. And then on the next page, they've got afraid, weak, strong, and guilty. So they've got 5 or 8 different emotions. Let me make it a little bit smaller here. And so often what happens with therapists is you say, well, we'll pick the word that best describes how you're feeling.
So if you say, I'm happy, then they say, at this list, which kind of, like, how intense is your happiness?
Right. Are you elated, excited, overjoyed? Are you good? Are you satisfied, pleasant, fine? So then you can take it to another level of measurement. So let me do this for a dissertation.
Okay.
Let's say you're doing a phenomenological study. You're looking at the lived experiences of people that were fired in a hostile takeover in their corporation.
Okay.
So the lived experience, you're usually answering the question, well, what was that like for you? So how we would set that up is we'd say, Ms. Respondent, I've given you a list here of different sorts of feelings, and I'd like you to pick 5 feelings from this list that are descriptive of how you felt when you were told that you were let go at this company.
Interesting.
So they said, oh, well, I'm feeling furious, and I was feeling disorganized, and I felt helpless, and I felt unworthy, and I felt frightened. So then you go back and say, oh, you said that you felt furious. Tell me about that.
That's interesting.
So it's a way of getting them to talk about, you can do that. You can then talk about, perhaps what happened on the day that they were fired. Maybe you can do something over time saying, well, let's look at the list now, 3 months after you were fired. What were the level of your feelings at that point? And then they say, well, I wasn't furious anymore. I was just dismayed. I go, well, that's a big drop. What things helped you be only dismayed instead of furious?
Interesting.
Or if they started with, if they started with a mild feeling, you can go the other way and say, what kept you from being upset or furious? So you can talk about what coping strategies they used, what resources they had, what, how they kept a bad situation from getting worse, things like that.
Very interesting.
So
yeah, I can see how this would be a really interesting tool, one for the interviewing, but then also for understanding and for coding too, because you can kind of see what the high medium and low emotions were, and kind of
Right.
dig into those to understand those.
Yes. So you could use it, like you're saying, as a interview tool where before they, you start out saying, please pick 5 emotions. And, 5's kind of just because we have 5 fingers on our hand.
Sure.
But you can ask them again about what they are and then tell me about that. So then now they have a nice thick flavor quote of the story.
Yeah.
You could ask them about it over time. Is it, this is what it was on the day you were fired. What was it like 3 months later? If it's lower, you can ask them, well, why is it lower? If they started low, you can ask them what kept them from being at a higher level of negative feelings. And that can be an interesting dissertation in itself. And that's typically not done in a dissertation. So there's something that's an original contribution.
Yeah. So if I take this and apply it to the work that I did, so I was looking at work engagement for those that instructional designers working at home and working in the office. So if I change it and decide I want to do a follow-up qualitative study, and I want to understand how people are feeling when they're being told they have to go back and work in the office, right? That's kind of a common thing going on. Then we could talk about, pick 5 emotions here that you're feeling right now because it's been mandated that you have to go back into the office. And then we can talk about, they're frustrated or they're enraged or they're trapped because maybe they're worried about the job market, or they're feeling exhausted because they know it's going to require a longer commute, getting ready in the morning, those kinds of things. Okay. That would be cool.
Let me bring up a common complaint about this sort of thing.
Okay.
Sometimes professors will say, well, you're putting words in their mouth. We want to just have it come from them and excuse me. And then we can get their, unadulterated, pure essence of who they are.
Right.
Well, having been a clinical psychologist, most people aren't in touch with their feelings to begin with.
Right. I can see that.
And we're not really putting words in their mouth. We're just giving them, these are 8 categories of feelings. And they can pick their own words to do that. So it's still based on them giving what is their perception and their experience.
Yeah. It's more prompts than.
Yes.
You're not telling them to choose the high level of intensity.
No.
You're giving them options. And I would say from a dissertation perspective, if you can provide rationale, like show that it's been done somewhere before.
Yes.
In an empirical study, if you can justify that approach, then you'll probably be okay.
There's that too.
But you've got to show that it's been done and done well.
Well, hopefully done well. But yeah, hopefully. That's another story.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. All right, this is good stuff.
So another teaching point related to this that I think I've mentioned on other videos, and this is from educational psychology. It's easier to recognize than to recall. Say it again. It's easier to recognize than to recall. In classes in school, typically multiple choice or matching is an easier exam than essays and fill in the blank.
Yep.
And frequently, and I believe it's a problem with a lot of qualitative interviewing, you're wanting them out of the blue to give you an essay response without any warm-up or promptings, which often results in underyield or frustrated or 1 or 2 sentence answers where you want big, fat, thick flavor quotes.
Right. But if you provide a prompt and say, tell me a little bit more about what it felt like to be furious.
Right.
What does that mean? What prompted that? Where did that feeling come from? Then they can then pinpoint, and that's where you get the longer answer.
Right. The classic neutral therapist prompt is, you said you were furious. What is that? What was that like for you? And then you're not pulling for a feeling or a thought or an opinion. You're leaving it open for them to do whatever the heck there is that they're going to do.
Makes
So
sense.
what was that like for you? It's often a good follow-up.
Yeah.
Or even just tell me more.
Yeah. I hear that a lot too. Tell me more about,
Sure.
feeling hopeless. Good stuff. I love it.
But if you start with this, then you're starting with your coding from the interview itself. So when you do your chapter 4 write-up and you can say, for the question about what was it like the day they were fired, common words were, furious, hopeless, ashamed, boom, 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 boom.
Mhm.
One respondent said, I wanted to strangle the snot out of them. It was totally unfair. I have worked in the company for years. They only kept the kiss ups. They didn't keep the people who actually could do things, that.
Yeah, those kind of things. And you could talk about too, I was come at this from a quantitative perspective. We heard the word maybe left out,
Mhm.
1 or 2 times, but we heard enraged 3 or 4 times from out of our
Yes.
15 respondents or whatever.
Yes.
So you can see like the major emotion is
Mhm.
frustration, anger.
Absolutely. And you could organize it for, the happy dimension, how many people gave things in the high and the medium and the mild. Sure, you could do that. And then, bring in your flavor quotes and then say, for the folks that have a mild feeling, they tended to have this. And the people who had a high level, they had this. Sure.
Interesting. See, this helps my quantitative brain kind of organize and start thinking about how I would present the information that I collect. So this is really helpful for me.
Good. All right.